wanted to go ahead. I'm going to try and find a spot that's kind of, there we go, maybe not so much in the sun right there. And kind of conclude today with our talk on creation, God in creation. Was going to kind of finish the story from yesterday with what I call the parable, or not the parable, but the gospel of the goose. There were two parts that I left off and wanted to go back to. So we were talking about, when I was looking at the pelicans that were flying, and it reminded me of, the gospel of the goose. When you're a goose and you're flying, if you're the lead goose, you're the one that's hitting the wind. The wind resistance is coming in the hardest. And of course, as I said yesterday, it's a 70% decrease in drag if you're the geese that's in the back. But that lead goose is the one taking the wind head on. Eventually what happens is that goose gets tired. The leader gets tired. And we can learn from nature that lead goose eventually drops back to the second and then the third and maybe the fourth position to rest. Kind of recharge and get their bearing again and to be able to keep going. And what happens is the second goose steps up to the lead, and that goose takes over leading the pack. So we learn from nature to help out our leaders. Sometimes it means letting them step back so you can step up. It means sharing leadership and sharing tasks, and nature teaches that. And it's reflected in the Bible. In Paul's letter to the Galatians 6:2, we hear about that. Share one another's burdens. Carry your cross, and so others can get rested and replenished and refilled. So we can see that in creation, and it's reflected also in Paul's letter. The other one is honking geese. How many of y'all have heard geese when they're flying and they're honking? It's pretty common. Well, I learned that they do that for a reason. The lead goose usually isn't the one honking. It's usually the geese behind them that are honking. And at times in life, we figure if you're leading and there's people sounding off behind you, you hope it's encouraging. And sometimes we start honking when we're behind our leaders and it's not encouraging. But the geese do that to give encouragement and exhortation to the lead goose. Almost like they're saying, keep it up, buddy, keep it up, keep flying, keep going, we're right behind you. So from creation, we can learn to exhort and to empower our leaders, keep them heading in the right direction. We hear that again in 1 Thessalonians in 15:11. Therefore, encourage one another and build one another up. Maybe St. Paul was watching a flight of geese somewhere and saw that. I don't know. Maybe he did. But again, we can take that lesson from creation. So we're kind of concluding. This is our last full day. Tomorrow we'll be moving into breakfast and the last of our beach time. Oh, I totally forgot about it. Is it on? It's not on. Oh, there we go. That helps. Okay, and so we're concluding our time here at Mustang Island, and probably already have plans and hopes to come back again. This has been a great, wonderful time. But I wanted to bring up and reiterate the mission of Mustang Island Family Camp. That mission is to provide a sacred space for our guests to rest, reflect, and renew their faith, surrounded by God's coastal creation. So that's the thing. That's why we're here. Have you felt renewed and refreshed and rested? Hopefully. I definitely feel restful after that great meal that we just had. And I told myself, I'm only going to have 6 shrimp. And I did. I just didn't realize the shrimp are about 3 inches larger than normal. So, in doing that, I started looking at, again, our conversation on creation and what's been going on. And in this world, 2,000 years ago, we marked the world by AD and BC, before Christ and after Christ. It seems like now we mark it with before COVID and after COVID. think that's just kind of one of the things that's come about these days. And before COVID, life was different. We remember that. But after COVID, people seem to want to be getting out more. It's like we got shut in and closed in, and we were forced to, and then as a reaction to that, it's like, get me the heck out of here. Well, doctors, psychiatric practitioners, nurses, counselors, therapists have been saying for years to do that very thing. Get out of the house. Get back in touch with nature. And it looks like that's what we're doing here today. One of the reasons that we do that is because studies show when you get out and get in touch with nature, certain things happen. You get sweaty. Well, that's not in the study. But your blood pressure goes down. Your perspectives broaden when you get outside in many ways, not just geographically or physically, but you become more aware of things. You become more in tune of things. We also get calmer. We get a little nicer. I don't know how that happens, it just does. But that's one of the things that's happened since post-COVID, is that we've been able to kind of get back in touch with God's creation by getting outside. For example, we just went to Virginia and spent some time there, about 2 weeks in Northern Virginia, and the state parks and the national parks are just booming. And in one case, we didn't go to the Shenandoah Valley National Park, but we were nearby it, and one of the statistics I heard is they've had a 50% increase in attendance since COVID ended. It's amazing. Just by nature, just by our nature to be in touch with nature, we're wanting to get back outside. And I think that's the spirit inside of us that is calling us out and saying, come be with me. God in creation is saying, come spend time with me. Now, one of the other things about that is the Pew Research Center, funny name for a church organization, the Pew Research Center, has said that the nuns, not the Roman Catholic nuns, but the nuns, N-O-N-E, the ones that are checking the box that says, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, the nuns, I don't have any religions, are the ones that are coming out and flocking to nature and finding, it's like they're figuring out what we're just now figuring out, that they're finding God in nature. Because when they get out there, they find God unmediated, unfettered, and uncomplicated by doctrine or dogma. Kind of probably a funny thing, an Episcopal priest saying, don't worry too much about doctrine. But I think before we can do any of that, we've got to get in touch with the Spirit and God through creation. That's where early man came from. That's where the Native Americans came from. That's where the Native Africans came from. That's where the Aborigine, everybody. Eventually, before you had a Book of Common Prayer or a Bible or anything, they were in touch with creation, they were in touch with God, and they were in touch with each other. That's kind of what we've come to do here today. I love seeing our project here. This project is a product of art and spirit. Being in touch with the spirit, y'all have produced this art. I think the closest we come to God-like is when we create. When humans create, brings us in touch with the Creator. Another 50% of us get to create human life. The other 50% help. Or at least we should. But when we come together to create art like this, it puts us in touch with making and doing and building and creating. That's what we're called to do. So this place right here, this island, Mustang Island, is a special and sacred place. I would love to package up this feeling and this environment and y'all and take y'all back to Menard with us, but we can't. So I think one of the things that we all feel is we all want to do some of the same. But what we can do is create an island in yourself at home, a space, a sacred space like this, to where you can go to when you want to Let me say it again. Rest, reflect, and renew. So when we leave, let's take part of this with us. Let's take part of this with us to a place at home, wherever it may be, in Fort Worth or El Paso or San Antonio, or I can't remember where everybody's from, San Marcos. And let's create an island that we can go to. You can't stay on an island forever. We'd love to. But let's go to that island when we need to rest, reflect, and renew. And in doing that, we can come back together, re-engage in the world, and be God's gift to the world. Whatever talent you have, whatever gift you have, get replenished, go out. So I wanted to close with this one thing that I found earlier. There's a Roman Catholic monk that I often turn to for inspiration. His name's Thomas Merton. Many of y'all may have heard of him before. Thomas Merton's a pretty extraordinary person. And this kind of sums up everything with seeing and finding and hearing God in creation. I turn to prayer. The sky is my prayer. The birds are my prayer. The wind and the trees are my prayer. For God is in all. Amen.